Mike Lawless. I'm the lead faculty member in entrepreneurship at Business School at USD. And welcome all of you to the second running of our Legacy Entrepreneurship Conference. I've got some mechanical and admin kind of remarks for you, which I'll get to in a minute, and then some introductions. I'll tell you about the agenda for the evening, which is full of useful events and valuable events, and just kind of get you ready for the rest of what we're going to be doing. But first, I'd like to bring up Dean Dave Pike, the Dean of the School of Business, who wants to welcome everyone. Dave?
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so welcome. This is awesome. Some of you, if you've been hanging around academia for any length of time, I have this phrase that academia moves at a glacial pace, and it takes forever to get anything done. It takes forever to get new courses introduced. And one of the coolest things about being at USD and having somebody like Mike Lawless and Regina and the other folks on the team that work on entrepreneurship is that they are really entrepreneurial. I mean, it just moves. And every now and then, I'll come up with an idea. Hey, you know what? Maybe we should have something that would help students on the creative process. Yeah, we've already thought about that. There's going to be a day-long thing in February. I mean, you know, that kind of thing happens. And then this conference, which Mike came up with out of nowhere, let's get our alumni entrepreneurs back, and we'll connect them with our current students. We'll generate some excitement and some energy and off it running, and it is just fantastic. To see what happens with people who are creative and innovative and passionate about entrepreneurship. I just love it. So as a dean, I get to sit back and watch people do all the hard work and create really, really cool things. So, and let me thank those of you, I think mostly in the front row here, but our alumni who have been out doing really awesome things. And coming back and taking time in an evening to share your expertise, insights, horror stories with our current students and with each other. So have a great evening, and really, if you're one of the students, fire away at these folks because they've been through it all. And I tell them, you know, don't only tell them the good news. Tell them the 20-hour days and the I think I'm going to go bankrupt kind of things. And they have such great real-world experience to share with you. So thanks to you all, and welcome. Have a great evening.
So the USD Legacy Entrepreneurship Conference is our premier mentoring, coaching, networking event of the year. It is intended to be a resource to our students, a little bit of applause for our speakers, and a chance to connect in both directions. So network, listen to the advice, the war stories of our speakers, and I hope you walk away at 9 o'clock with a lot more knowledge about this space and what it takes to start a business. Got some admin remarks to make, and then we'll get going. So first of all, some thanks. You may have noticed the Bright Idea booth and the Delush counter out front. Jeffrey Adler is a good friend of the business school and of the university, and he sponsored that initiative where we are trying to get some inspiration and some support going for very early ideation and venture development. We've got 10 speakers who I'm just so excited who are here with us tonight, and I'm going to just introduce them real briefly, and you'll have a chance to meet them and spend some time with them during the evening. Jeffrey actually is one of our speakers. Stefan Arstol, who started us off 2 years ago when I first got here with our first pitch competition as our keynote speaker and the founder of Tower Paddleboards. Morgan Schwanke, where's Morgan? Morgan should be up here with me shortly for our Fireside chat. Winner of our V2, the most money in our V2 pitch competition last spring, and now is at Evo Nexus downtown, the incubator, developing his business on my block. Kristen Buchanan is the founder of Good On You Bar, and she is a friend of USD and with us for the first time this evening. Naveed Alipur is a USD alum and an investor. Gabi Cabañas is an entrepreneur works on both sides of the border and is a great supporter of us, always there to help out. Jayla Siciliano is another USD alum and the founder of Bona Fair Wines. Actually just moved into 10 Whole Food stores just in the last few months. Jody Green is a new friend of ours, the founder of Chic CEO. Jason Friend is with us, an investor and a USD alum. And Tim Skusky, who is a USD alum and an entrepreneur. And I think that is, let me just make sure that's everybody. So that's our roster of speakers for this evening. I'm very excited to have them with us. If you had a chance already, if you haven't, enjoy a D-Lush juice or coffee drink out front and give you a bright idea. We also have, I think, a very interesting and interactive program for this evening. We'll spend the next 45 minutes in what I'm calling a fireside chat format. Jayla and Morgan will return up to the stage here, and we'll spend some time just talking with them about launching their businesses. Networking is an important part of the evening, so there are generous breaks. We're going to go to 6:45, 15-minute break for you to talk with each other and with our speakers. 7 o'clock, we'll start the next phase of the evening, which are 2 concurrent panel discussions. We'll divide our 10 speakers into 5 groups of 5 each. Some of us will be in this room, some of us will be in breakout rooms on the side. We'll ask you to kind of move during the 15 minutes to those rooms. The program shows you who is on each panel. We'll have another 15-minute break, and the last part of the evening is really special. Starting at 8 o'clock, each of our 10 speakers will be placed in a spatially separated area around the breakout rooms, and you'll have a chance to do what we call speed networking with them. You can ask your questions, have a small group or interpersonal discussions. That last hour or so is divided into 15-minute blocks. We'll ring a bell, at which time you're welcome to get up and go visit with another person or stay with the person who you're having your discussion with. At 9 o'clock, we'll come back in here and finish off with some closing remarks and send you on your way, hopefully knowing a lot more about entrepreneurship and new venture investing than you do now. So Jayla and Morgan ought to be somewhere around. And this could be a monologue. Here they are, Jayla and Morgan. So let me just step through the door into our fireside chat room. So this is very casual and informal. We'll leave a couple of minutes toward the end of the 45 for your questions. But I'm very happy and proud to have both of them with us. Jayla, as I said, Bona Fair Wines, Morgan on my block. So I want to just take us briefly and casually through the development of your businesses and start us off with the inspiration. Where did you get the idea to start Bona Fair or On My Block? Jayla?
Well, I did, after college, I did product development design for Diesel footwear and then Burton snowboards, and I did that for about 7 years. So during that time, there was tons of travel and sales meetings, and everything revolved around drinking, pretty much, especially with Burton. And, I love to have fun, and I love good wine, but I'm not really a beer drinker. So, but you couldn't really go out and sip on water all night, I mean, you could, but what fun is that? So I started kind of adding soda water to my wine, and I'm like, I could sip on this all night, wake up. I was also teaching kickboxing at like 6:30 in the morning, so I had to be able to balance that. And then I was spending a lot of time on boats in the summer, and by the end of one summer, a bunch of my guy friends were like, hey, can I get a spritzer? Hey, can I get a spritzer? And people would laugh, oh, here comes Jayla with her spritzers. So that's when I realized there's kind of a void in the market for a lighter wine that doesn't have a bunch of sugar and preservatives and everything in it. Had no idea what I was getting into with alcohol, so quit my job and dove in. But so that's kind of where the inspiration came from.
Fantastic. So basically your own personal experience and seeing a need.
Personal need,
Great.
Yeah.
And Morgan?
So On My Block started kind of out of a dorm room experience my sophomore year of college when I went to find a place to live off campus, and it was just so difficult to search and figure out where the best college rentals were. And so I was using Craigslist and ended up basically putting together an Excel spreadsheet of all these places that were available and also rented to college students, and probably put together about 20 of them. And then ended up, my roommate wanted to tap into that list, and so I said, okay, I'll share this Google spreadsheet with you. And then more and more friends and classmates started using this list, and the next semester, I started a service called Student Realty San Diego and helped over 80 students secure leases in about 2.5 months, made over $5,000 through that service, and realized, wow, there's this like real opportunity here. There's students that have a big need, and what we learned through the process was that students, as I'm sure you can guess, students move into houses and apartments that their friends and classmates have lived in before. So what our goal was to figure out where those houses and apartments were, how we can capture them, and basically turn them over year after year after year in the same way that they just go through word of mouth or list on Craigslist. And so now what we're trying to do is not only provide a great search experience, but also take over that month-to-month cycle where students are actually paying rent through On My Block, and landlords are screening applicants through On My Block, and some cool features and ideas in that space. So that's kind of how it started, and it was about 3 years of development along the way while we were in school, and so it was difficult, but really fun and rewarding once we finished school and could start working on it full time.
Morgan actually partially answered my next question, which means you're out ahead of me again. But let's start with Jayla. So a lot of people have a bright idea, an inspiration. It could be, one of my favorites is to sell flats, ballet flats, to women leaving nightclubs at 3 in the morning because they want to get out of their heels. But or a new kind of drink, or your businesses. But a lot of people don't get nearly as far as the two of you have. So when you go from that bright idea, that inspiration, what were the next kind of really important events or steps that you took to start on your way?
Well, for me, I think I quit my job, so a lot of it was pride and ego at that point to not go back, I guess.
Right.
So I thought I'd have it off the ground in a year, I thought, if it's one product, this will be really easy. And so I started talking to wineries, researching the business, quickly realized, whoa, this is going to take a lot longer than I thought. I went through credit cards, 401k, all that stuff, went back to bartending. And then I realized I need to raise more money, that kind of thing. So I think it's just being dedicated and not quitting. At one point, I spent 1.5 years pitching investors, finally raised the first round of funding, went to launch last summer, and lost 95% of our first production run.
Wait, say that again?
Yeah,
Lost
lost
it?
90. Yeah, the caps were leaking. I started shipping boxes. The boxes were showing up soaking wet. So I thought, okay, I gave it a good shot, and so I think that was kind of a pivotal point to just keep going and push through that. So I think,
Let me stop you there for a second. So here's this 95% of your first production run?
Yeah.
Critical, right? I mean, yeah.
$100,000 worth.
So why didn't you just say, I'm going to do something else?
I kept saying if somebody else would come out with this, I would probably quit, but I just really wanted it, and I have a passion for it. And at that point, you're so close. You're always so close. There's always something next. But yeah, I guess if it wasn't something I was passionate about, I probably would have quit. So I think if you're really, truly passionate about it, or there's a deeper desire for some reason to do this, then you can keep going through that stuff,
Yeah. Was
But
there
not easy, for
sorry.
sure. Yeah.
Was there a turning point for you, or a decision point?
I think one of the biggest components of me keeping my legs in the game, I suppose, was my partner Jordan, who we ended up teaming up my sophomore year of college or late my sophomore year of college, and he and I became pretty much best friends, and we would spend late nights together in the law library and using the whiteboards in there and stuff like that. And those times when I would personally, if I were alone doing this, there would have been times where I would have been like, I just don't think I can make it anymore. But we pushed each other and we challenged each other to do more and to look at things differently. And because we were so different in how we approached problems, it kept us going. And there would be times where I couldn't answer a question, but he very well could have. And so having a partner, I think, was a really big part of getting to the next step, particularly when you hit those points where you're like, I'm going to just give up. I can't make it through the day almost. And just being able to talk with them and meet with your co-founder and just solve the problems together. It's really powerful to have someone that you can trust and is just as passionate and excited about what you're doing as you are.
It seems to me that both of your businesses call for some kinds of skills or abilities that you didn't bring to the business. So if it's bottling or production or if it's website, I don't know how much of a web architect you are, but if you have to go outside, how did you decide where to get the people to help you, the skills or the resources to keep going? How did that work?
Well, yeah, I realized soon after I didn't know much about business, really. I knew like my segment of design and development for footwear and bags, but I didn't know much about finance or anything. So that's when I decided to go back to school for my MBA, thinking, well, one, I was new to San Diego, so I had no business connections down here, and two, I needed more of a business foundation. So I kind of thought that going back to school would do two things. I could network and make connections down here, and I could get more of a foundation for finance and all that stuff. So I honestly think being here at school helped me tremendously. I met both of my investors through connections through USD. Mm-hmm. A lot of my advisors that I brought on board were kind of through connections through USD. Mm-hmm. So just massive networking, and then doing that taught me to network, which I normally would say I hate doing that, or it seems like a weird thing, but it's definitely critical to find the people who can fill the gaps that you need. Mm-hmm. So just putting it out there, talking to everybody, telling people what you need, and it's people come out of the woodwork, and somehow you can get them together.
Same kind of story?
Yeah, kind of similar. Networking is huge. It's so important. And building a great team is not easy, and oftentimes it doesn't happen the first time around. Our team has certainly changed quite a bit until this point today. And it's a lot of it has come through finding the people that are really passionate about what you're doing, because particularly when you're a young company and a startup, you can't afford to pay people sometimes at all, and when you're getting started, and so you need to find people that are really excited about your product or your service or your idea, and can also buy into your vision and where you see the product in 2 or 3 or 4 years, and they can see it just alongside you. In terms of finding technical people, a lot of our success came through the internet and networking with people online and using services like Angel's List or LinkedIn. And then what's particularly popular in San Francisco is called poaching, where you basically find people at potentially other companies or people that may be leaving other companies, and you say, hey, let's go get coffee. And sometimes it ends up turning into someone that might want to join your team. So it's competitive out there, and you want to find the best people, and so you always have to kind of be on your game and be open to chatting with people and talking with people, and also recruiting people.
I have 1 or 2 more business school questions to ask you, and then I'm going to ask about funny and weird events along the way. But I know both of you have outside support. You're at EvoNexus now, and you have some money from our V2 pitch competition in the spring, and you've raised some angel money. So tell us about that process of getting money from outside. Once you use up your own credit cards or 401k or whatever, what's that like to find investors and to pitch them and so forth?
I think it's a numbers game. The more people you get in front of, the higher your chances are of closing around, So it's like just, again, that talking to everybody, asking everyone, hey, do you know somebody, do you know anyone in this space, that kind of thing. I think the most frustrating part of it is everybody's an investor, So a friend says, oh, I know an investor, and, it takes a lot of time and effort, and you set up these meetings, you prepare all these materials, you go do your pitch that you've practiced a million times, and then they're like, at the end of the meeting, they say, yeah, I know a few investors, and it's like that keeps going. But you have to do that to finally get in front of the people who are actually writing the checks a lot of times, because it's hard to tell who are the check writers and who aren't. And sometimes they're just not interested in your business, and sometimes they are. And then I think the other thing is our first set of investors that came in, they told me every week for 6 months I'd have the money in the bank next week. So, that's just torture. So it's a really difficult process, but I think if you get in front of enough people, it's doable. And if you have a solid business plan and something that's unique and not a lot of competition, or some really unique edge to it, I guess. But yeah, I actually like the fundraising part. It's fun. It's kind of like a game and a puzzle, and the whole corporate structure is fascinating. I actually really like that part of this.
Cool.
Yeah.
Morgan?
I think that investors, when they look at a team or a company, they're investing in two particular things, the idea or the vision and how that's going to become a success and obviously help them make some money. And then also the team and how they can really buy into the people that are a part of it at that point. And so as we've approached investors, like Jayla mentioned, it's always helpful to just be very open and talk with as many people as you can about your idea. I think that a lot of people get scared. It's too early to talk about my idea, but the more feedback you get early on, if you feel comfortable in sharing stuff with them, the more feedback you get early on, the more you can learn about your product and how you can bring it to market and answer all the questions that investors will inevitably ask you anyways. And so then when you get to kind of talking with the investors stage, it takes a lot of time and a lot of practice, and really just entering into that experience with humility and understanding that your first time around you're not going to be able to answer all the questions perfectly, and then eventually you start getting more and more exposure and learning how investors will ask you questions and how you can better answer them, and knowing more about your product. And investors are also networking. Sometimes they may not see an investment deal that's right for them, but they may have a strategic partner in mind that might be perfect for you to chat with. And so it's been, we're just getting into the process of kind of closing a larger seed round for our company, and it's been a long, kind of grueling process along the way, but it's also been really exciting and helpful because talking with investors also brings new ideas to light, and they'll share an idea with you, and it will spark your passion and experience, and you'll kind of run with that, and you'll run alongside them, and then you guys can kind of go create the great idea together. So,
Okay, work with me on this scenario. It's Thanksgiving. You're sitting around the dining room table with your family, and one of your family members asks, "So, Jayla, Morgan, what's going on? What's your business like? What do you do? What are you spending your time on? Tell us something interesting about what's going on." And you say,
For right now?
"Yeah,
well, in 2 weeks, you have till Thanksgiving.
Okay, what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks? Well,
pass the turkey and
Yeah.
cranberry sauce."
we just went into 12 Albertsons stores here in San Diego also, and starting to go into some on-premise stores, which are
Boy,
like
12.
Albertsons,
Albertsons,
yeah,
great.
grocery stores. And so the thing I'm getting a kick out of right now that I would probably tell my family is just, I am having to run in there at 7:30 in the morning and stock the shelves and make sure my product is turned right. And there's people from Gallo and Southern Wine Spirits in there, like moving your product at night when you're not there. So it's ridiculous. And so you're spending half your time doing the stupidest stuff, but at this stage, you kind of want to be hands-on a little bit longer, because this is how I'm learning too, the whole process.
Yeah.
But I just laugh when I'm like, an hour sitting in an Albertsons aisle trying to get a price tag out of the receiver. It's just like silly stuff like that.
So should we look for you at 7:30 in the morning with a dolly?
Yeah,
and,
probably.
And cases of wine, really? That's
Yeah,
so
pretty
funny.
much.
Morgan, what about you?
Well, these last 3 weeks have been really exciting for On My Block because we've been networking with investors throughout these last 3 weeks. And what I was mentioning before is that through doing so, there have been new ideas that have been sparked for our company. And we've actually changed and adjusted our vision a little bit, which a lot of companies call it like a pivot. We'll take it to call it like a small pivot. But it's kind of opened our eyes and horizons to what we can do, and how we've kind of changed our vision is what I was mentioning before. We want to take over the entire month-to-month rental management experience, and so we're now creating technologies for students to be able to pay rent through On My Block, for landlords to screen applicants, for landlords to upload their leases and tenants to e-sign them. And eventually we're going to roll out a way for students to bid on leases and to compete for their favorite college pads. And we're going to start with the college audience, and our goal is to eventually hone become really popular amongst the college students and then move beyond and launch this out potentially beyond. So that's really exciting to us, and that vision, though it took us some time to recognize, has gotten other investors excited. So we're getting ready to close a $500,000 seed round, and that's huge for us because it will allow us to bring on some really crucial people onto our team. It will allow us to expand to some new colleges. And right now we're still using San Diego as a really great experimental place, but with the support of some really good advisors and investors in the Bay Area, we're hoping to really roll out in a much bigger way next semester. So
actually, that was a question I was going to ask you both. Morgan's already answered it, but Jayla, so you've raised some money too. So where are you taking your business? What's kind of the next year or 18 months for Bonafaire?
So our goal right now is basically proof of concept, figuring out what's working, what isn't in the grocery stores, in the hotels, restaurants, that kind of thing. So from now through January, it's the busiest time of year for alcohol. So it's really just kind of pushing sales, see what's working. And then in January, the goal, I just closed another $150,000, just a small amount from our existing investors. And so basically not planning on raising any more money until the goal is in January to start talking to distributors. I've been talking to a lot of them, but they wanted to see more sales, more proof of concept, that kind of thing. And then get expanded out, through Whole Foods, through the chains, geographically a little bit farther, but just staying within California primarily. And then raise money when we're ready to kind of expand further. So for the next 6 months, just kind of doing what I'm doing, and then based on what's happening right now, figure out the next steps and the next plan.
So you both have outside money, which means at some point you're going to have to pay off your investors. So have you thought about an exit or continuing your business at some point? What are the longer term plans?
For us, our plan would be to sell the company if we can. I think especially with alcohol, it's tough to compete with all the big companies own the distribution. So ideally, of course, if you can sell it, that's great. If I owned the whole company, I love the brand, I love the product, I love the process, I would probably not be as inclined to sell it, but that is the best way to try to get a return for our investors. And fortunately, I got money from people who it wasn't their life savings or anything, so they knew what they were getting into. I would suggest trying to find people like that. It takes a lot of pressure off. If this was family and I took my parents' savings, I couldn't even deal with that, or something like that. So I guess the plan is to sell it when it's at a certain level. For beverage companies, it's usually at about 10 million in revenue. You're kind of on the radar of some of the bigger companies if you have a unique space. So kind of getting to that stage.
And they're in a mature market, so they're looking for growth opportunities and new products and innovation. So
a lot of the big companies, that's what they do. They acquire and they just plug them into their distribution. So they're not really good brand creators, but they're really good at the operations and distribution side. So.
Yeah. And Morgan?
So exit is, I think, one thing that we don't really focus on right now. We're really focused on just building a great team and a great product that college students will love using, and a great team that's behind it, really passionate about it. And that's our big focus right now. I think our goal, like I mentioned, is to really create this great product for students across the country, become a platform that students will turn to just like they turn to Rate My Professor or other services that are really reliable for college students. And then to either look at moving outside of the country, because there's lots of students abroad and that also live off campus, or look at moving beyond the college marketplace if we feel comfortable in doing so. But right now it's, we're very small. We're still in beta, just in San Diego, and we're focused on just really experimenting with the product, seeing what people like, what people don't like, what they're willing to do, and what kind of our capabilities are as a platform. And once we have a package that works well in San Diego, then we'll really move quickly with it at different schools and roll out quickly.
Thanks. So in the spirit of this collaborative, mentoring, interactive evening, we have about 10 minutes left of this format. Are there questions from anyone else in the room besides me? And you all are not mic'd, so I'll have to repeat so we can get it on the tape. Yeah, go ahead.
Jayla, so how do you use your negotiation strategies as far as your initial bottling shipment went awry? Did you have that where the bottler kind of had to come through with their insurance and follow up on that? How have you learned the negotiation process? Because a lot of this, you're going out to people and saying, hey, do you want to work with me? Do you want to take a chance on me and my idea, my concept, my company? So it seems like you maybe aren't in the best leveraging position for negotiations. So how do you still make strong, sound negotiation agreements when you're in that position?
Let me try to repeat some of that for the other video. So the question was, how do you use your negotiation skills and at important junctures in the development of your business, like when your production run failed? Is that fair enough?
As a small company. Honestly, you don't have a lot of negotiation. Looking for bottlers to begin with, this bottler was the only one that would take me. I didn't have a website up. I was basically going around to wineries. The other thing with Bonnefaire, there's some requirements to the bottling that limit the bottler options out there, I guess you could say. So this bottler was the only one that would take me at the time, and they were a family-run business. The father passed away, the son took it over, and had been driving it into the ground. But they had some really big clients, Bacardi, Diageo. So I thought they were good. We didn't even have a contract in place. They would not give me a contract. I sent it over, and I sat in their office. I camped out in Michigan for 7 weeks that summer. They wouldn't give me, they kept delaying the bottling run, and I just showed up in their office every morning because I'm like, if I get back on a plane and go back, they're never going to bottle it. I have to stay here and just get them. The only thing I had was they like snowboarding, so I hooked them up with a bunch of gear, so we kind of became friends. So I think they actually just felt bad and were like, oh, squeeze her product in here somewhere, And then they just were running into all kinds of issues. So basically, when I figured out what happened, obviously I filed an insurance claim with our insurance, and they said if it fell off a truck, it would have been covered, but this was considered a manufacturing issue. And right after this happened, that bottler had to lay off, 100 people. They were basically going under. So I don't have the money to go after them or sue them or anything. So I put them on notice, basically, and I think I have 2 years to potentially sue them for it. But at this point, I'm just focused on growth and going forward. But even a lot of our suppliers, I'm ordering the bare minimum, quantities. You really don't have a lot of negotiation power with the Whole Foods, the Albertsons. You're just kind of in the position of, please just take me, that kind of thing. So what I've found is just buddying up, building relationships is your best, the best thing you can do. It's the best way to get people to do or go that extra mile or kind of give you the extra little nudge that you need is building the relationship because you don't have any leverage really, So becoming friends with them is the best way to kind of get them to do what you need. That would be what's worked for me anyway.
Great, thanks. You have a question?
How did you convince somebody to take your product before anybody
How did you do your first sale?
This is a funny one too. So Whole Foods, I literally had a Post-it note on my computer for a year, like I'm going to get this in Whole Foods. And that's kind of how, for me, I would consider this the first product I've ever developed successful if I could get it on Whole Foods shelf, for me personally. So I was sending samples to their corporate office, to their regional office. I was talking to the buyers in the store, so trying to come at them at all angles because I was told you basically have to do that. And one of the buyers in Encinitas, he liked it, and he's like, yeah, this would work here. I'll introduce you to the regional local buyer. So got an introduction to him, sent him all my specs and samples and everything, and he said, no, this isn't going to work for us, so basically rejected it. I was like, oh, man, I know I'm going to get in there somehow. So basically, he was holding a workshop up in LA one Saturday morning, and I was like, I'm going to go to that workshop and just ask him, like, what would it take someday to get in there? You know, I just need to get in front of this guy one-on-one. So I went to the workshop at the end, waited in line, finally got a 5-minute meeting with him. I had my samples, talked to him for like 10 minutes, and he pulled out his computer, and he's like, let's get you started in 5 stores. So,
Nice.
yeah, so I think it's just that persistence and numbers, too. It's just going to enough people. And now, you know, trying to get into the hotels, so much of it is relationship-driven, so me not having those relationships, it's just talking to as many of them as you can. And sometimes I think you might not get in right away, but you start that relationship, you might get in a year later, so it's still worth it to keep talking to them and following up and stuff. So
Morgan, you're pre-revenue, but you've still had to do your own selling.
Sure, yeah. So one of the ways that we will make money is through driving leads for large real estate companies. And so what we do is we partner with companies like apartments.com or forrent.com, and we'll drive leads for their customers who are, you know, mom and pop landlords or apartment complexes. And persistence is certainly the route to go down because a lot of those large companies don't want to take a chance on maybe partnering with a small startup because they can go through all this work and then the startup can just fail a few months later. And so I think the first time that we actually partnered with a large real estate company is a company called Appfolio in Santa Barbara. And I probably called them once from a business perspective and said, here's what we can do, and then kind of got flat out rejected there. And so then I went on LinkedIn and I found someone that worked in the company and contacted them, told them I just wanted to get on the phone with them, talked with them, ended up building kind of a mentorship relationship with them. They knew the space really well because Santa Barbara has a lot of college students, and they told me, here's different ideas you can do with your company, and ended up kind of just working up the ladder and closing the partnership a few months ago, and so now they will pay us for leads that we drive across the country eventually as we expand. So it's a lot of persistence and also networking.
Great, thanks.
What are some companies or brands that you guys kind of looked up to or modeled your business after, and why?
Did you model your businesses after any particular brands, and why?
I mean, I read all kinds of books, like the Method, you know. To me, I love coming from even Burton and Diesel, the cultural aspect of those companies where you can have a really cool, fun environment. It doesn't have to be, you know, serious and stuffy and that kind of thing. So I think I still look up to Burton in the sense of aspire to be a company like they are, have a really strong brand, a cult following, that kind of thing. And then all the companies out there who have a social cause to them, I look up to immensely, and I hope to be able to incorporate that sooner than later into my business. It's not something I've done so far, but the goal is there. I want to do it. So, yeah, I mean, I just like all the cool products out there, and you know, I can't really think of any specifics, any other ones.
In a way, though, you do model a little bit or borrow from ideas from different places and kind of incorporate it into your own approach. But a big part of launching a new business is to be different.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, a lot of times you're looking at what other companies are doing and how can you be different in doing, yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah.
There's a lot of software companies out there that are really great, and there are different aspects that you can pull from each one. For example, you may say, I really like the company culture at Google. I really like how Rate My Professor appeals to college students. I really like the search experience for Airbnb. So those are 3 companies I really like. And so you can pull little things from different companies, and I think that's one of the coolest parts about being in the technology space is that you can apply something that works. I'll give you an example. We're trying to generate reviews around houses, apartments, and neighborhoods, and we look at Yelp because they generate reviews around restaurants and trying to figure out how they get their customers to write reviews, and there's a science behind it, and they've done a really good job at it. And so there are different companies that you can learn things from, and it's all across the board. You can apply it to your company culture, you can apply it to your product, you can apply it to your team, and going back to the investor stuff, really finding investors and advisors that maybe have experience in that space is really helpful as well, because the more you surround yourself with knowledgeable people that either are experienced with investing or in the technology space, or for us particularly the real estate technology space, the more you can kind of become a master of your domain.
And I think, one quick thing to add to that is other startups. I mean, I'm constantly networking with other startups, and that actually makes me feel the most sane, and I get the most inspired. So I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one who's crazy and dealing with all this. And Kristen, who's here, I'm always picking her brain. And so yeah, I think other startups, more than the big companies even.
And you have that at EvoNexus?
Yeah, so we're in an incubator where there's 10 or 15 companies, and we're surrounded by them, and we can just turn around and ask another CTO a question about how to solve a problem. So that's huge, just being so close.
Cool. Okay, time for 1 or 2 more questions. Libby?
This is the question directed at Jay, actually. We had some terrible news last week that there's going to be a wine shortage, a global wine shortage.
I heard that.
Is that a threat? Do you even think about it?
Yeah,
So the
it
question
is.
was, is there going to be a local wine shortage? It's in the news, or
Yeah.
and how will you deal with it?
I think the one good thing is, we're not, it could drive the price up, but it will happen to everybody sort of a situation. Luckily, because ours is half water, we have a very large margin, or large enough, so, and right now, we're selling direct. We could continue to do that instead of going with a distributor because they take a 30-point margin. There's a shipping cost, obviously, but it's less than paying a distributor to do it. So, yeah, no, it's definitely a concern for sure. The other thing is I need a quality of wine, not low, but not high. And so there's a pretty broad spectrum of wines that I can pull from to use. So I'm not necessarily quite as limited, but the prices are definitely probably going to go up for sure. And maybe we'll do a vodka spritzer next year.
We got more questions. I don't know, we may have to just keep going with the questions.
Yeah, I just have a quick question for both of you, actually, that applies. Regulatory, obviously, with alcohol, and then if you're taking money for rental, broker sort of issues, how do you navigate the regulatory aspect? Because, a lot of people for funding, a lot of people for great ideas, technical aspects, but then regulatory is always the case. So,
Yeah, for alcohol, it's ridiculous. It took me 10 months to get our license, I think. TTB, you have to get every formula approved by the government. And I felt so bad during, the government shutdown. I mean, that was a huge issue for a lot of people. A lot of beers had seasonal beers that were about to launch for the holidays, and their formulas hadn't been approved. You can't bottle it. So I think you have to build that time frame in to go, you can't really expedite stuff that much. You really have to kind of go with the flow. So planning for that, and then I have a compliance company now that manages all of our regulatory stuff. So I have to report how many cases I ship to each state for our online stuff. Montana might only allow 2 cases per person per year, and another state is unlimited, so I have to track how much goes to every address. So hiring somebody, I found, it's not the kind of thing you want to screw up, so outsourcing it is, for me, the easiest way to manage all that.
we're actually going to finish here so that we do have time for you to network with Jayla and Morgan and our other speakers. So let's thank them.